Teachers work with assessments every day. We give pre-assessments before some units of study begin. We give formative assessments throughout a lesson or unit to help adjust our teaching during instruction. We give summative assessments at the end of a unit to gauge a student's mastery of the content. Assessments have become a second nature to teachers, and sometimes it's good to sit back and think about the assessments we use. Let's spend some time thinking about formative assessments. Unlike summative assessments and pre-assessments, which are given at the beginning and end of a unit, formative assessments are techniques used by teachers during the teaching of a lesson to ensure student understanding. Formative assessments allow the teacher to gather feedback from the students and adjust the lesson instantly to improve student learning. Examples of formative assessments include exit tickets, quick quizzes, check for understanding, class discussion, and cold calling. These techniques have the advantage of allowing the teacher to adjust instruction quickly and in ways that benefit the students. The disadvantage of many types of formative assessments is that not all students are represented. Some students sit quietly back while others answer questions, and they may not be engaged in learning. The types of formative assessments, such as quizzes, that do ensure feedback from all students can be cumbersome and time-consuming for the teacher. So what do? We take advantage of the technology tools available to us. By using digital tools effectively, teachers can gain a deeper understanding of what their students know without having to hand out and grade a stack of papers. Using digital tools effectively will help to engage every student while providing important information to the teacher swiftly. Let's drop into a classroom to see how this might work. Mrs. Smith is teaching a unit on the water cycle. She begins her lesson with the definition of precipitation. She tells the class that precipitation comes in many forms, such as rain, hail, and snow. It is important that all students understand this concept to be successful in the unit. So Mrs. Smith uses Kahoot to check for understanding. She has prepared a game in Kahoot where students are shown various images and they decide if the image represents precipitation or something else. Using this method, Mrs. Smith can quickly address any lack of understanding about precipitation while keeping all students engaged in learning. Later in the unit, while discussing types of evaporation with her students, Mrs. Smith notices that a few of the students look confused. Instead of calling on those students in front of the class to discover their needs, which could embarrass the students, Mrs. Smith has all the students access her Infuse Learning classroom, and she starts to ask verbal questions to the whole class. Using the graph tools in Infuse Learning, she quickly learns that many students are confused about the concept of transpiration. She instantly redirects the class to this concept, and within a few minutes, all students understand the concept of transpiration and are able to continue learning. As the unit progresses, students learn about freshwater and saltwater. To make sure all students have an understanding of the two, Mrs. Smith asks the class to access their Padlet wall for this lesson. Each student is to mark at least one source of saltwater or freshwater on the map provided in the Padlet wall. They should also explain how that source gains and loses water. As the students add information to the Padlet wall, Mrs. Smith can observe their responses immediately. When she notices a student response isn't accurate, she can quickly and quietly assist that individual student. When they are finished, Mrs. Smith has managed to help the students who need remediation, and the class has a great new resource about saltwater and freshwater. Finally, as the unit nears the end, Mrs. Smith guides the students to a Google form she has prepared. Students are asked a variety of questions about the water cycle. Using the amazing tools in Google Forms, some students are automatically guided to more information on a topic when they get a wrong answer. These students have instant feedback and can quickly access information to help them understand a concept. Using the graphing tools that come with Google Forms, Mrs. Smith can instantly tell which concepts the students have mastered and which concepts need remediation. She can then re-instruct any concept that the students need. By the end of the unit, all of the students understand the water cycle, and Mrs. Smith doesn't have any papers to take home and grade. Mrs. Smith has used formative assessments in a way that supports all students without the workload of doing things on paper. She allowed technology to do what it does best: help us communicate and organize information.